Are you getting enough sex? Chances are that you probably are not. And if one person in the relationship is not getting enough satisfying sex, then it's problematic. Stay tuned and I will show you a technique that I share with almost every couple that I work with.
Yeah, let's start the show.
Shut up, you're not one of the Hodge twins. Hey everybody, I am Chuck Rogers. I'm a licensed professional counselor and a licensed marriage and family therapist.
And I'm Keith Dunn, and I am a network engineer.
And together we are Tabletop Coffee, where each week we talk about how to do life, do it well.
Being bold and never, ever bitter.
And tonight we're going to talk about sex. And we're going to talk about specifically, are you getting enough satisfying sex in your relationship?
What makes sex so difficult? We're grown, we're born with this desire. Everybody has that desire to some degree. Why is it such a difficult thing?
Well, there's so many factors coming into it. Your heritage, what you were taught, or weren't taught, as the case may be, or maybe your experiences that you've had.
Sure.
A lot of people have traumatic events that affect their thoughts and emotions toward the activity.
Right.
So it's just all kinds of, ingredients in this salad that are there.
Yeah.
But usually in the intensive workshops that I do with people, the intensive counseling days, it'll usually come up in there somewhere. And when it does, I just kind of pause things and I say to folks, okay, let's just pause. Let me ask my usual counselor questions in regard to this topic. And I usually kind of go down a list to find out, to assess where this couple is with regard to this topic and in regard to how it's affecting in a good way or in a not so good way in the relationship. So the very first thing I'll ask is I try to say it in a humorous way to kind of break the ice and to lower the tension. I'll say, how's everybody's plumbing? And in Virginia, I'll say, how's everybody's plumbing working? And I'll ask the guy to begin with, I'll say, are you able to get an erection and sustain an erection okay? And usually the answer is yes, but if it's not, then I have to begin to ask some questions like about some health questions and how long has this been going on? And which part is difficult for you? And maybe the recommendation will be that he sees a physician, to get testosterone levels checked and just to have a good medical examination to see if there's anything medical that's preventing him from achieving and sustaining an erection. Then I'll turn to the woman and I'll ask her, is there any pain for you during intercourse? And usually she'll say no, but sometimes she'll say yes. And so if the answer is yes, then I'll have to ask deeper questions. Is it that it's painful intercourse, or is it just that it is, are you able to have it or not? And we're looking for two specific conditions. One is vaginismus, which is a kind of a contracting of the vaginal muscles, making intercourse difficult or impossible.
Okay.
Or dyspareunia, which is just painful intercourse. And if the answer is yes to that, then maybe a gynecological examination is in order for her as well.
Okay. So do you ever have couples where one will not tell you what's going on, but the other one is sitting back and saying, "Oh, come on, you have to talk about that," or they're pretty open?
Most time people are kind of open about it because I'm very direct about it.
Okay.
But sometimes people are pretty sheepish, and if one person is sheepish, then the other person will say, "This is really difficult for him," or "This is really difficult for her."
That's good.
She's really kind of shy about this topic.
Okay.
And so then we'll talk about the shyness in regard to where that comes from. It's a very delicate topic. One time I had a resident doing a session with me, and she was saying, "I'm not sure you should have been asking him those questions." And I said, "Oh, exactly, I should have been asking those questions, because if I can't talk about it with them and they can't talk about it with me, they're sure not going to talk about it with one another." And so I need the information, they need to talk about it, and I need to model for them that it's not only okay, it's just healthy to talk about. So then I ask about, is there any pain for her during intercourse?
Right.
And then after that, I'll ask them, so where are you guys as far as where you are in regard to this activity? Do you both have similar or the same drives as far as, are you on the same page as far as frequency?
Right.
Usually the guy is kind of here and the gal's kind of here. Occasionally it's reversed and the gal is here and the guy is here.
Okay.
And on a rare occasion have I had them be, very, very similar or the same sex drives. I've had couples that are like, oh no, our sex life is great. The rest of their relationship was, kind of a mess. But they
sure.
had that part going well. And that's pretty rare, I would say. So we talk about frequency, and then we began to talk about, I said, are you guys on the same page as far as types of sex that you like, or positions, or, where are you with lingerie? Where are you with oral sex? Where are you with giving and receiving and those kind of things? And then usually most couples will kind of go ahead and talk about that with me because I'm bringing it up.
Right.
So that gives me the general 60,000 feet kind of view of what's going on, and then we can talk further about it.
So can I ask one question, backing up into that point? I don't know if this is something to cover in this or not, but you mentioned the shyness thing, and if somebody is shy, you dig into that a little bit, because you shouldn't be shy about that part, at least with your partner. There shouldn't be shyness there.
Agreed.
I can understand talking to somebody that I've never talked to before, and being shy about that. Personally, it would be a point that would be difficult for me to do.
Really?
I think so. How do you deal with the shyness side?
Well, one thing is that once you bring this topic up and you talk about it, the rest of the day is a breeze.
Yeah, it's all
because
downhill.
This is a very,
right.
very personal, very intimate topic.
Yes.
But once you talk about this, it's like, man, there's just open season on everything else. I might say, hey, it sounds like this is a more difficult topic for you, or it's a little bit, you're kind of shy about it. Kind of tell me where you are with this.
Right.
And sometimes they'll tell me their history, or just their thoughts, or their beliefs about it. So we make opportunity for it to be talked about, and maybe this is the first time they've ever talked about it. Sometimes I have couples that say, no, we don't talk about our sex life. And
Okay.
so this conversation in the session is an anomaly for them. So we're
Right.
actually doing what they need to do, which is to talk about lots of things, but they really do need to talk about this topic.
Okay. So when they say that they don't talk about that topic, do they mean they don't even talk about it with one another?
No, they don't sometimes.
So it's just going through the motions, but you never find out
right.
what each other likes or dislikes
Right.
or any of that.
Which is a shame. It really is, because this is an activity that is certainly physical. I mean, you've got all kinds of chemicals being released. It's emotional. It's relational. I really even believe it's a spiritual kind of
I agree
a
with
connection as well.
Yes.
So it's an incredibly important part of any relationship, or it needs to be
Right.
important. Oftentimes it will get off track for a number of reasons for couples.
Now we have the big picture.
Mhm.
Okay, so we're sitting up here and we have an idea of where that couple is, each person, and where to go with this. So what's next? How do you maneuver through that? And do you go with the guy first or the girl, or do you just make a decision based on what they tell you where to start?
I'll usually ask them, how would you guys like to proceed? What would you like to have happen in this area? And let them set their goals.
Oh, okay. That's a good
Usually,
idea.
I would say usually people really do want a vibrant sex life, but they've just kind of gotten off track, and it's kind of hard to get back on track. Sometimes they mean to,
Sure.
but oftentimes it doesn't get back on track for them by themselves. We'll talk about what their goals are, what they would like to have happen, and then we'll talk about, okay, so what are you really going to do to get yourself going in that direction? We might not talk about it then. We might set this topic of sex aside and talk about the other issues that are in their relationship as well. But we will come back and talk about it, either in the intensive day or in the follow-up.
I can see that topic can just lead into so many other things. You can run down rabbit trails of different reasons why this isn't working, or this
Right.
isn't working, or why they quit in the first place,
Yeah.
or it's not as frequent as one would like.
Oftentimes, it's kind of the thing, they're lacking emotional, relational intimacy.
Sure.
So that leads
Right.
to the lack of the sexual intimacy
That makes sense.
as well. So sometimes that's the reason. Sometimes people are just tired,
Yeah.
especially with children. A lot of things, scream for attention. Children scream for attention. Our jobs scream for attention. Other things
Right.
are super loud in our lives, and sex kind of oftentimes gets put to the back burner, and sometimes even taken off the stove. And people usually mean well and know that it needs to come back, but it's kind of like, well, we'll work on that tomorrow, and then that becomes next week, and then months go by, sometimes before it happens, or years.
Yeah, and it's kind of like dating. You know, a lot of times that gets put on the back burner, especially when you have young kids.
Yeah.
I know that was really tough when Lisa and I were first married. We had no money,
Right.
and it was real tough to find that time to even
Take a date to go somewhere.
Take a date to go
Because you
anywhere.
got childcare, you got money for the
Yeah.
meal if you're going to go out, or the movie or the activity you're going to go to. And so it's kind of like, we'll date, it's just later. Well,
Right.
and you're right, that happens with regard to sex. I try to be very proactive about it and say, let's take this topic seriously and let's move forward if that's something that they want to work on. I talk to them about various options. We're sold a bill of goods in our country, I think kind of in our world, but specifically in our country, thinking that it needs to be spontaneous.
Yeah.
What I tell my couples is that if it's working for you spontaneously, awesome, keep it up if it's working. But if it's not working in a spontaneous way, then it's probably a good idea to begin to do it in a more intentional and mindful way. So we're talking about scheduling sex.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and when I say that, I get kind of a frown and a like eyebrow, like what, you know?
Right.
So for many, many years, I mean, from the onset of when I started doing outpatient practice, I was prescribing for my couples to schedule their sexual activity. And I kind of thought I was a lost ball in high weeds and, weird duck. And surely nobody else out there is telling their clients to go do this. But nevertheless, I would persist because I thought it was valuable and was getting some fruit from it. And here's why I would tell the couples. It takes the pressure off if you just schedule your sex. Let's just say that a couple talks it through and they want to have sex twice a week. Let's just say that's their goal. And let's say that they choose Tuesday evening and sometime on Saturday will be their
sure.
goal. That is going to relieve the pressure. And let's just say, for the sake of the conversation, that it's the guy in this relationship who has the higher sex drive and the gal has the lower sex drive. Again, it can be this way, but for this talk, we're going to talk about it, the guy having a higher drive. Let's pretend that Tuesday and Saturday are their agreed upon days, and Monday comes around. And he comes home from work, and she comes home from work, and he comes up from behind her and gives her a big hug, and maybe his thumb brushes up against her breast. She's probably thinking, he's probably horny. I mean, that was a pretty intimate hug. But we have an agreement that, not tonight. It's tomorrow. I know he would want sex, but I'm sure he's okay, and he'll be taken care of tomorrow. So she can rest and just receive it as a very intimate hug and not feel pressured to think that his next grab is going to be for a sex organ to try to haul her away to the bed.
Right.
And he's probably feeling kind of horny too, but he's thinking, it's Monday and Tuesdays are agreed upon time, so I can just, we'll watch TV, we'll have dinner, we'll talk. So it just relieves the pressure for both people. And then the same thing would happen through the rest of the week. So this is the picture I've been giving to my clients. And so then a few years ago, I went to a workshop in Fredericksburg, Virginia, on marriage sex. It was by a guy who was a very veteran therapist, much more experienced than me. He was a very, very good therapist and really dealt with a lot of sexual issues for clients.
Right.
And you go to these workshops and you get a spiral ring notebook and you dutifully take your notes and try to learn some things. So I was taking my notes and this guy says, scheduled sex trumps spontaneous sex every time. And I'm like, what?
Really?
Yeah. And he says, I'll say it again. Scheduled sex trumps spontaneous sex every time. I'm like, yes, I was right all along. So, here's, does it surprise you?
It surprises me. It does remind me of something, though, because that's not something I've really ever thought through. But did you ever watch the Roseanne show?
Yes.
So Roseanne and Dan? Dan was her husband. And I do remember either Friday night or Saturday night was always their night. Didn't matter what else was going on. that was part of that night. And I always scratched my head and thought, yeah, that's so strange. So going back to this, what was his thought behind that? How did it trump?
Good thought. He said, remember the illustration I told you earlier about how it relieves pressure?
Yes.
That was the first thing he said. But then he kind of gave me new lenses and opened my eyes to things I'd never even thought about before about why it's important.
Okay.
He said not only will it relieve pressure in that way, but you can set up other types of ideas as well about how you're going to schedule your sexuality.
Oh,
For instance,
okay.
maybe you have Tuesdays are for sure and sometime on Saturdays are for sure, like we talked about earlier.
Right.
But maybe Thursday would be
A maybe.
a maybe, a possibility. And all other nights would be off the table.
Well,
But
that makes
you'd have-
sense.
yeah. He says so couples can do it that way. Not only can you schedule sex days, but you can also, he says, schedule no sex days.
Hmm.
Like maybe,
Can't be on this day.
yeah, maybe every day is a possibility, but not on Mondays because Mondays are just too stressful. We're going back to work, we got soccer practice and all this stuff. So he said couples can do it, set it up any way that they want to, and can do it certain ways for a certain season of their life, and then due
And
to
then adjust it.
changes, yeah.
I can see how maybe not having a day or scheduling a day where it doesn't happen for sure, especially if one person is down here and the other person is up here.
Mm-hmm.
You already talked about the guy coming home and, you know, he may be thinking about it, but it's
Right.
Monday, it's not Tuesday, so she's feeling pretty safe in that. If he's in tune with her, he can use that as a way to meet another need for her.
Absolutely.
As far as, you know, just sitting down and watching a show like you mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
or just snuggling, or playing music, or discussing something that they
Right.
did during the day.
Yeah, it's just all open for discussion. Let's talk
Yeah.
about tipping dominoes. Let's try this for a
Ah.
while and see how this works for us.
That makes sense.
Another way that I began to experiment for couples, let's go back to the illustration of Tuesday, Saturday.
Okay.
Let's just pretend that they decide that twice a week is the thing. But maybe the gal is not really a twice a week girl. Maybe she's a once a week girl. But the guy's kind of like, I really kind of want and need this at least twice a week. So that brings up
Okay.
this, you can't always problem solve, but you can always problem manage.
Is that a loggerhead issue?
It can be. Let's
Okay.
hope not. So what I began to experiment with couples that tended to work very well is to say, well, maybe the gal in this situation isn't really up for twice a week, but for sure on Saturday. But maybe on Tuesday, she'll give him a sexual gift. Maybe she'll give him oral sex, or maybe she'll manually stimulate him to orgasm so that it gives him a loving sexual gift, a snack, to hold him over till they can have the meal, the more erotic experience, maybe on Saturday.
Okay.
Again, I was thinking, I can see the value of that, but boy, I wonder if I'm a lost ball in high weeds about that. I continued to, get trainings and learn. And one of my mentors is Michelle Weiner Davis. She has the Divorce Busting Institute out in
Oh,
Boulder,
yeah.
Colorado.
You've talked about her a lot.
Yeah, she's great. I've read just about almost everything she's written and listened to like everything she puts on cassettes or CDs or DVDs or
Cassettes. He
Yeah.
said cassettes.
I do. It dates me. That's my favorite teaching is hers. Six cassettes is my favorite teaching that she has. So Michelle has written 2 books. She's written lots of books, but one is called The Sex-Starved Marriage. And
Oh,
then the other one she
okay.
has is called The Sex-Starved Wife. And she
Okay.
wrote that for women who do have the higher sex drive than the husband, because those ladies are lost balls and high weeds.
Oh, I bet.
Because all their girlfriends are saying, geez, oh, Pete, I can't keep my husband's hands off me. All he's doing is pawing and pawing. Wish he would just give me a break. That woman who's not having sex as often as she wants is like, I would kill to have that problem. But mine's the opposite. I can't engage my husband. What's wrong with me and my chopped liver? So she's written that
Sure.
book for that woman. Those are in the links down below.
Yeah, in the description.
Yeah, description. Thank you.
Okay. So have you ever met Michelle Weiner Davis?
Oh, yeah, I've been out to Boulder twice.
Okay.
She invited me to be part of her team. I was very grateful that she invited me to be on. I felt honored, but just
Wonderful.
decided to focus on the practice here. And
cool.
she's also got a great TED Talk. I think it's only like 17
Oh,
minutes
Yeah.
on this topic of the sex-starved marriage. And it's
Okay.
wonderful. It's just down to earth. It's very, very direct. it was been around Michelle quite a bit, and in her writings or in our trainings, I can't remember. She eventually shares that she in her relationship is the one that has the lower sex drive, and so I use her as an example a lot of times about what she says, because
Sure.
sometimes when I'm in counseling sessions, the woman will look at me like, "Yeah, you're talking about this stuff. You're a dude, you know." Your lens is a little bit bent here.
Yeah.
And I'll say, well, that's probably true. I'm probably bent in some ways. And what one of my mentors, Michelle Weiner Davis, says is this. So it kind of gives me some clout to use.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
Wonderful.
use from Michelle's perspective. And so Michelle also kind of trumped my idea, or I trumped her idea, or we had it separately, I don't know. The loving sexual gift during the middle of the week
Oh.
to tide the higher sex person over until they can come together and maybe make love on the weekend.
Okay.
I had a guy one time who started talking about this, scheduling sex, and he said, "That'll be the day when I schedule my sex." And I'm like, "Dude, I'm trying to get you some."
Yeah.
You know? And I don't think he ever did buy in. And Michelle said her experience was she was talking to this couple about the woman giving her husband a loving sexual gift. I think it was oral sex or manual stimulation. I can't remember. And the guy goes, "Well, I don't want it if she doesn't want it." And Michelle's reply to him was, "Get over yourself. It's a gift."
Okay.
So it really is a way to manage the situation and to work through it. And it is truly, truly loving. And it can solve the issue totally if couples will begin to tip these dominoes and look at doing their sexual relationship in a different way.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
To think through that process and to think through scheduling and, you know, the guy who was saying, "Well, I don't want it if she doesn't want it." That's a tough thing too, I guess, for some people.
It is, but you got to look at it differently. And this is one of the good places that Michelle talks about the research on sexual desire. We have been sold a bill of goods in our country that says first comes desire, secondly comes stimulation, and then comes resolve.
Okay.
And for some people, it is that way. But for some people, it's stimulation first, and then
okay.
desire, and then comes resolve. Because I've heard from a lot of people, especially a lot of women, who will say things to me like, "Chuck, you know, from a physical standpoint, I'm okay with once a month or once every 2 or 3 months." It's actually kind of regular for me to hear women say, "You know, from a physical standpoint, I think I would be okay without sex ever. I'd be okay with that."
Okay.
But what Michelle says, that's been a similar experience for her too. She tells them to use the Nike approach, which is just do it.
Yeah.
Those same women will tell me that, "Yeah, I'm really not all that interested. But once we begin to hold one another and begin to kiss and begin to hug, I become stimulated and I feel good and am able to have an orgasm, and it feels great." So you just have to begin to talk about things that you're going to try to be able to move forward in this different and wonderful, wonderful way.
Oh, just great things.
It's a great topic, isn't it?
Yeah, great topic. Great things to think through that we don't always think through.
We don't think through them. We certainly don't talk about it. So there you are, technique about how to schedule your sexual activity to get it off the back burner and get it back on the front burner.
Yeah, and you know what I learned tonight? You know, I've been wondering this entire time, what has Keith done being a network engineer fit into anything with this? But, you know, I have jacks that go into plugs.
There you go.
Daggone! This fits perfect for me.
You're more of an expert than you knew.
I had no idea.
I always appreciate your input.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Hey, we hope that you liked our content. If you did, please subscribe and ring that bell so that you're notified of future episodes.
Yep, and be sure and like it and share it with your friends.
We would appreciate that
Yes,
too.
we would.
Thanks, everybody.
Until next time.